Hello, everybody. Carla Sassi, convener of IASL, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the second video of the 10 Minutes with series designed to showcase the projects and the accomplishments of members from our community. Today, we are traveling from Iceland to Hawaii. To meet Dr. Allison Francis and Dr. Richard Hill. Without further ado, let me introduce them, as I do not want this presentation to be too long. I know they have lots of interesting things to say. Dr. Allison Francis is Professor of English and Coordinator of the English Department at Chaminade University of Honolulu. And she has published widely on a range of topics, which include, besides Scottish literature, Victorian literature, 19th century African, American, and Caribbean women's literature, and women's literature with a focus on science fiction and fantasy. Among her recent publications, I will just mention a co-edited volume on South Sea encounters, 19th century Oceania, Britain, and America. I should also add that she's also a playwright, a director, an actor, a performance poet when she isn't playing tennis into the wee hours of the morning. Richard Hill is Associate Professor of English, also at Chaminade University of Honolulu. He received his PhD from Edinburgh University, studying the lifetime illustrations to Sir Walter Scott's Waverley novels. He then followed another Scottish author, Robert Louis Stevenson, partway through the Pacific, settling in Hawaii. He is the author, among other publications, of Picturing Scotland Through the Waverley novels, Robert Louis Stevenson and the Pictorial Text, and he has edited Robert Louis Stevenson and The Great Affair. Both Dr. Francis and Dr. Hill recently co-hosted the IASL Regional Conference, Scotland and the South Seas, writing the White Pacific, that was in Honolulu. And both are collaborating on a collection tentatively titled Scottish Literature and the South Seas, Cross-Cultural Connections. And last but not least, they are members of the IASL Executive Committee. So welcome both to 10 Minutes With. I'm very happy to have you here. And the first question is about this legendary conference you organized 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I could not attend it, but I know it was very successful. I know it focused inevitably on Stevenson, but also on other Scottish writers and travelers. So perhaps we can start our conversation with more information on this conference.
Thank
Sure.
you. I think, Richard, if you could start and tell us how we came to be actually the conveners for that, that would be a wonderful way for us to begin.
Sure. So Alison and I, we attended the Stevenson conference at Napier University in 2017, I think it was, where we were approached by someone who wanted to go to Hawaii, basically. Caroline McCracken-Flesher said, how about you organize the next IASL conference, which sounded terrific. We have logistical problems in Hawaii because we are literally the furthest away from any landmass in the world. So that presents some problems for any conference that we organize, and Alison has more experience in that, which is partly why I wanted her not just on board, but basically doing all the hard work, let's put it that way. So we arranged it. We knew it would be small, but we wanted it to be significant. And although we missed you, Carla, it turned out to be a terrific group of scholars that we got together. Any conference in Hawaii, I mean, it's easy to sell because it's Hawaii. You know, you say Hawaii and most people want to go. But we really wanted to make sure that it had the academic weight, the scholarly weight behind it too. And we did. We got some incredible speakers. We had Rosalind Jolly open as a plenary, and from University of New South Wales, and Penny Fielding, my old, well, she's not old, but my PhD supervisor from Edinburgh University, closed for us in world-class settings. We were very lucky with where we were able to set up. As you said, Carla, any Pacific Scottish conference on literature is bound to be focused on Stevenson, but our deliberate purpose was to try and expand that a bit. And when we first started, I wasn't quite sure how successful that would be, because I wasn't sure of the power of Scottish literary connections to this, the Pacific, but the conference really opened that up for us a lot. And as a result, we've got this project, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But
and I just wanted to add to something that Richard had said about the intimacy of the conference, because we had initially 25, I think, Richard, conference proposals. We decided to create a smaller subset of plenary talks and co-convening rooms, so that more of us could actually participate in listening to so many of these fantastic conversations that were occurring within the conference presentations. And also, Richard mentioned, being in Hawaii, we were able to provide these incredible iconic spaces for our receptions, like the Iolani Palace and the Honolulu Judiciary Museum, where we had some of our plenary talks, as well as this fantastic little bake shop, which is where the Stevenson Hut was recreated and moved to. So I think for all of us, it was a stunning experience, because we weren't quite sure how it would shape up, as Richard said, being in the Pacific, but it turned out to be a glorious experience for everyone.
Fantastic. So I had lots of extra reason to regret not being able to participate. Right. So I'm also curious to learn more about this projected edited volume, which I imagine stems from that conference about Scottish literature and the South Seas, which presumably is going to focus, again, not necessarily only on Stevenson, but also on other writers and travelers. So at what stage are you with this project, and what are your plans? Again, either or both of you.
I mean, very quickly, we very recently sent a very detailed proposal off to Scroll. The challenge we have with a Scottish literature in the Pacific volume of essays is that there's bound to be a heavy Stevenson focus, but we're trying to expand it out. So you have this balance between a single author project, which we didn't want it to be, and a multiple author project that has a lot of Stevenson, and that's the balance that we're trying to find. But we think it's a really rich, powerful volume that has been collated from the people who were there, and we know it's strong because we heard the papers. We know it's strong because everyone in there is a world-class scholar in their own right, and so we're hopeful. So it's with a potential publisher right now, and we're kind of waiting to hear back. So so that's where we are with that.
Okay, so
can I add to that, Carla? What I really love about this collection is it speaks to multicultural studies, literature, history. So it doesn't just stay within a genre of academia. It kind of opens outward. And that's, I think, the beauty of Scottish literature, which we're really starting to see how it kind of fans out beyond the islands, beyond Britain, and actually encompasses these areas in Oceania. And I believe this particular volume will contribute more to that study, that we need to do a little bit of backward glancing in order to move forward into this more kind of diverse global experience that we're trying to offer to our students and to other scholars.
Fantastic. And of course, there's very little on Scottish literature in the Pacific, beyond Stevenson, I mean. So very much looking forward to its publication. And finally, Richard was telling me of another project that is the adaptation of Stevenson's specific stories into a graphic novel or a series of graphic novels. So I imagine this is a collaborative project with someone else who can draw, who can produce the drawings. Again, I'm sure our viewers are very curious to know more about this project and when are these graphic novels going to be published. I'm sure we all want to buy them as soon as possible.
Well, unfortunately, COVID's wreaked havoc on this too, but hopefully only temporarily. Professor Michelle Kwan from Edinburgh University, who came and opened our conference actually last year with a presentation on these novels, is interested in the short stories, I should say, Stevenson's Pacific short stories, and the two in particular that are interest to Hawaii are The Bottle Imp, which is set in Hawaii, and The Isle of Voices, which is also set in Hawaii. She has recruited a local artist in Hawaii, Solomon Enos, and is working with counterparts in Samoa too. And is looking to open up workshops and creative writing workshops for students and high school students. The stories eventually will be published in Samoan and Hawaiian, I'm told, as well, which is in the spirit of the original stories, because that's what Stevenson did as well, certainly in Samoan anyway. And so she very kindly has co-opted us into being part of this, the opening of this at Chaminade University. Allison, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that.
Well, I think it's just kind of this ongoing theme that Richard and I are creating with this multidisciplinary, multicultural way of introducing Scottish literature to the Pacific, to Oceania, and now to these other generations of students, right? The high school students, leading us to college students. And I'm hoping we can also do some writing workshops that will produce graphic art that reflects what is learned in these kind of joint seminars that we're trying to produce at Chaminade University. So it's very exciting times. Despite the challenges of 2020, we have some exciting projects in the works.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. These are really exciting projects, and I'm personally very much looking forward to seeing these volumes in print. Thank you both for taking time to be with us today. And for the viewers, keep tuned as we are soon going to post more exciting interviews with our extraordinary members. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Paula. Thanks.